How did this happen? How did a woman who had sworn off distractions, who had built walls too high for anyone to climb, end up tangled in a dangerous, undeniable attraction to someone so much younger? Let me tell you how I ended here. The sound of my heels clicking against the marble floor was a rhythm I knew well. It was the sound of purpose, of control, of a woman who had built her empire with her own 2 hands. But everything changed 7 years ago. After my divorce, I buried myself in my work. It wasn't just about success. It was survival. The marriage had been abusive, a suffocating weight that I had finally broken free from. I rebuilt my life, my career, my confidence. Love? That was something I had long since abandoned. And yet, here I am. My fingers brush against Zach's. His hazel-green eyes hold mine, unwavering. The heat of his body so close behind me in the dim laundry room, his hand sliding up my thigh beneath the bar table, the press of his lips against mine. Urgent and demanding. Zach, the newest hire at my real estate firm. 27, confident, sharp. The kind of man who turned heads the moment he walked into a room, though I had convinced myself that mine wouldn't be one of them. I had seen his type before. Young, ambitious, full of charm that came too easily. But something about him unsettled me in a way I wasn't ready to admit. At the monthly meeting, our eyes met for just a moment. A flicker, a spark. It was so brief, so insignificant. And yet, my pulse reacted before my mind could silence it. Ridiculous. When the senior manager asked me to let Zach shadow me at an upcoming open house, I hesitated for only a moment before agreeing. It was business. That was all. The morning of the open house arrived, crisp and clear, sunlight spilling through the windows of the luxury property we were set to showcase. Zach was already there, adjusting his tie in the reflection of a glass panel. He turned when I entered, flashing a smile that was easy, effortless. "Morning, Celeste." The way he said my name, like we weren't separated by nearly 30 years, made something tighten in my chest. "Morning," I replied, keeping my voice even, professional. We moved through the motions of preparing the house, arranging brochures, ensuring every detail was immaculate. He was good at this, engaging, smooth, making every potential buyer feel like they were already home. I watched him, admiring the way he carried himself. There was a certain energy about him, youthful, uninhibited. Then, it happened. We reached for the same stack of brochures, and for the briefest moment our fingers brushed. A simple touch, insignificant, but the jolt that ran through me was anything but. I glanced up instinctively, expecting him to pull away, to move on as if nothing had happened. He didn't. His hazel-green eyes met mine, unwavering, reading something in my expression that I wasn't ready to acknowledge. The moment stretched longer than it should have, and I was the one who broke it, clearing my throat and stepping back. "We should be ready for the first group soon," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Of course," he said, a hint of something unreadable in his tone. The rest of the day passed without incident, but the awareness lingered, a low hum beneath the surface. As the last visitors left, Zach stayed upstairs while I headed to the laundry area to switch off the lights. The dim space hummed with central air, the quiet settling around me. I reached for the switch when my phone slipped from my grip, tumbling toward the floor. It bounced off the washer before landing face down on the hard tile with a dull thud. I winced. "Damn it," I muttered, crouching to pick it up. Flipping it over, I exhaled sharply. Thin crack ran across one corner, not shattered, but noticeable. Footsteps behind me. "Everything okay?" Zach's voice, warm, teasing. I turned to him, feeling ridiculous. "Not exactly. My phone didn't make a graceful landing." He smirked, stepping closer. "Let's see." Before I could react, he reached for it. His fingers brushed mine, the contact brief but electric. The air between us shifted. He studied the screen, tilting it slightly. Just a scratch. Still works? I pressed the power button. The screen lit up, the crack barely interfering. Yeah, just annoying. His hazel-green eyes met mine. Could have been worse. Guess I got lucky. I swallowed, suddenly too aware of his nearness. A pause, longer than necessary. He handed the phone back, his fingers lingering. Got it, he murmured, his voice lower now. Silence stretched between us, thick with something unspoken. The air felt warmer, heavier, the walls too close. My breath came unevenly. A creak from upstairs shattered the moment. We stepped apart, but the tension remained. Undeniable. Later, over lunch, the conversation was light, effortless, on the surface. But beneath it, tension curled like an ember waiting to ignite. When Zach suggested continuing the conversation at a nearby bar, I hesitated. I should have said no. I didn't. A drink turned into two. The dim lighting, the low hum of music, the way he leaned in closer as the evening stretched on. It all blurred into something dangerous and intoxicating. His knee brushed against mine beneath the table, a barely there touch that sent a slow shiver down my spine. You're beautiful, you know that? Zach's voice was softer now, stripped of the usual teasing. I scoffed lightly, attempting to deflect. I'm old enough to be your... but you're not. His interruption was firm, sure. His eyes held mine in an unrelenting grip. My stomach tightened. You want me, Celeste, he murmured, his fingers brushing against mine on the table. And I want you. His confidence should have irritated me, but instead it stirred something I had no name for. His hand slid up my thigh, barely pressing, just enough to test, to tempt. I should have stopped him. I didn't. I let him pull me out of the bar, down the dimly lit sidewalk, into the waiting cab. I barely remembered the ride, only the heat of his hand against my skin, the way his gaze burned into me like a silent promise. By the time we reached his apartment, I had convinced myself I would walk away, that I would say no. Then his hands found my waist, and all sense of reason disappeared. The door barely clicked shut before his lips were on mine, urgent yet patient, as if savoring the weight of what we were about to do. My back hit the wall, my breath coming fast as his fingers trailed beneath my blouse, his touch feather-light but searing. Tell me to stop, he murmured against my throat. I didn't. Instead, I pulled him closer, my fingers threading into his hair, my body pressing against his in silent surrender. I woke to the golden slivers of early morning light filtering through the curtains, the warmth of his body pressed against mine. His arm was draped over my waist, his breath steady against my shoulder. For a long moment, I just lay there, unmoving, unwilling to face what this meant. Then, reality settled in. I slid out of bed carefully, barely daring to breathe. He stirred slightly but didn't wake, his fingers loosening their grip on my skin just enough for me to slip away. By the time I was dressed, my pulse was a frantic mess. I didn't look back. I didn't let myself. I shut the door softly behind me, stepping into the crisp morning air, the scent of him still clinging to my skin. I told myself this was the right thing to do. So why did my fingers tremble when I reached for my phone later that day, hovering over his number, typing and deleting messages I couldn't bring myself to send? And why did I feel like I had left behind something I wasn't ready to lose? Avoidance wasn't an option. The office was too small, our roles too intertwined. I arrived early, hoping for a moment of control before seeing him again. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt it. The shift in the air, the quiet awareness of someone watching. Zach. He was already there. He stood by his desk, his gaze lifting the second I walked in. His expression was unreadable, but the weight of unspoken words settled between us. My breath caught. The images from the night before flashed through my mind, his hands gripping my waist, the warmth of his body pressing against mine, the way he had whispered my name in the dark like a confession. His eyes darkened slightly, as if he knew exactly what I was thinking. "Morning," he said, voice lower than usual. I forced my face into something neutral. "Morning." It should have ended there. We could have walked away, pretended last night never happened. But instead, he hesitated. His fingers tightened around the coffee cup in his hand, his throat bobbing as he swallowed. And just like that, I felt it all over again. The pull, the tension, the quiet hum of something neither of us dared to name. I turned quickly toward my office, needing distance, needing air. But before I could shut the door, there was a knock, firm certain. Then, after a pause, he stepped inside. "Celeste," he said, his voice steady. "We need to talk." I swallowed hard, pulse quickening. I gestured for him to sit, but he didn't move. Instead, he closed the door behind him, leaning against it. His presence filled the space in a way that made my breath hitch. "You left?" His voice was quiet but firm. I forced myself to meet his gaze. "I had to." His jaw tensed slightly. "Why?" Because if I had stayed, it would have been harder to pretend it didn't mean something. Instead, I said, "You know why." His lips pressed together, frustration flickering behind his eyes. "You don't regret it." It wasn't a question. I hesitated. "It doesn't matter." "It does to me." His words sent a shiver through me. He stepped forward, not closing the distance entirely, but just enough for me to feel his presence like a ghost against my skin. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you," he admitted, his voice softer now. I closed my eyes for a second, willing myself to stay composed. "Zach, whatever this is, it's complicated." "I know," he exhaled, "but that doesn't change the way I feel." My breath hitched. I let out a shaky breath. "And how do you feel?" His hand reached for mine, just barely brushing the ghost of a connection neither of us was willing to acknowledge yet. Like I don't want to pretend this didn't happen. A knock at the door made us both snap apart. One of our colleagues entered, oblivious to what they had interrupted. I turned away, reaching for my files, pretending I was fine, that my hands weren't trembling. When I finally glanced up, Zach was already at the door. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. But as he left, his fingers brushed against mine. Just barely, just enough. And I knew. This wasn't over, not even close. It was something else entirely. And that terrified me more than anything.